Hello there, I'm Allie and welcome to my channel. Today's video is part 4 in a series documenting the making of an 1860s inspired version of Ariel's pink ball gown from Disney's The Little Mermaid. We are working on this project from the skin out, so far we've made a chemise, bloomers, a corset, a hoop skirt, and a petticoat. Today, it is finally time for the gown skirts. I had every intention of this video containing the entire gown, but I have so much footage with bodice that it's gonna have to be its own video. I will not subject you guys to 45 straight minutes of my blurry and out of focus hand sewing. Links for patterns and materials will be in the description down below. Let's get into it. For the underskirt, I used matte satin from Fabric Wholesale Direct in the color Blush and pattern TV247 from Truly Victorian on Etsy. As per usual, I used my rotary cutter to cut out all my pattern pieces and then chalk pencil to mark any registration marks and pattern markings. I hemmed and hawed for a while about exactly what colors to go with for the gown. Originally, I planned to make this gown in the seafoam green color that you see more often in Disney parks and merchandising, but I struggled to find the right colors when ordering fabric swatches. In the end, I decided to give pink a shot, if nothing else than for the nostalgia of the original gown from the movie. Despite not usually being a pink girly, I fell in love with the pink swatches I ordered. Once I decided I was recreating the pink gown from the movie, I had to decide between a white underskirt and a light pink because I saw both when looking at reference photos. But in the end, I was so intimidated by the idea of having to keep a white skirt clean that I opted for pink. I also ordered matching crystal organza, intending to use it as an overlay for a little extra magic sparkle, but it actually ended up looking like an off-brand Barbie dress, and my one attempt at flatlining the organza and the satin was a nightmare, so that idea was very quickly scrapped. Once all my pattern pieces were cut out, I serged all the edges because this fabric frays like crazy. Because it is my mission to figure out how to put hidden pockets in every single costume I make, I started the assembly with the inseam pockets. I measured about 3 inches from the top of the side front pattern piece and pinned the pockets in place. I stitched the pockets on the machine with 1/2 inch of seam allowance. I then pressed the seam open and pressed the pocket piece away from the skirt panel. I then understitched the pocket to keep it neat and tidy. Understitching is where you stitch something to the seam allowance to keep it tucked neatly underneath the right side of the project. It's most often done on clothing facings so they don't flop around all willy-nilly. I repeated those steps on the next skirt panel and then pinned the two pieces together with right sides together. Why am I using so many pins? Oh my gosh. Like, I get it's a curve, but geez, Ellie. I stitched up that side seam, backstitching at the points where I pivot to go around the pocket bag for added strength. I assembled the rest of the panels, then finished the back opening by pressing it under by 1/2 inch, then top stitching it down. I stitched a box at the bottom of the opening to add strength and prevent the seam from getting ripped open accidentally when taking the skirt on and off. Wrestling all this fabric under my machine was definitely a challenge, and if I ever make a skirt like this again, I will absolutely do this part before I put the back panels on the rest of the skirt. Next was to pleat the skirt. There's a 1-inch knife pleat at the top of each seam that gives the skirt shape. I matched the markings on the fabric and pinned the pleats in place. To keep the pleats in place without dealing with a million clips or pins, I basted them in by hand. Next step was to cartridge pleat the back panels of the skirt down. I marked 2 rows of dots about 1/2 inch apart and ran a running stitch through the markings. To prep the waistband, I pressed it in half, then pressed one side in by 1/2 inch. This is the seam allowance for the inside of the waistband that I'll hand sew. With right sides together, I stitched the waistband ends closed, then trimmed the seam allowance down with my pinking shears and pressed the waistband flat. I pinned the waistband to the skirt, starting in the center front and working my way out. I pulled on the thread tails for the cartridge pleats to gather them down into the waistband and stroked them with a pointy corner tool to make them lay nicely one beside the next. I attached the waistband by machine, whip stitched it down the inside, and added a hook and bar closure. I put the skirt on my dress form over the hoop skirt and petticoat to level the hem, then pressed the 1/2 inch rolled hem in by place with an iron and catch stitched the hem down by hand. I gave the hem one more good press to make sure it laid flat and beautiful. I decided to add some trim to the hem for a little extra detail, and since I had an obnoxious amount of this lace trim in my stash, I decided to use it on every part of the costume I could. I attached it with a long running stitch and tacked the points down so they wouldn't flop around. The overskirt is also made from matte satin from Fabric Wholesale Direct, but in the color Dusty Rose. I used, and altered, another truly Victorian pattern from Etsy, TV 341. I mocked the skirt up and decided it wasn't long enough, so I added about 12 inches to the top of the pattern to give the shape and length I was looking for. The overskirt is just one big piece cut on the fold, and I had to cut it out on the floor because it was too big for my cutting table. I serged the raw edges, then it was right to hemming. I wanted to hem the skirt before pleating so that I didn't have to worry about taking the hem allowance into account when I mathed out the pleats. Okay, real talk, there was no math. I just played with the pleat size and placement until I was happy with it. I pressed a 1/2 inch rolled hem into just the rounded edge with my iron, then whip stitched the hem in place. I gave the sewn hem a good press to flatten out any wrinkles on the curved edge. Now, pleats. I wanted to replicate the drapey look of Ariel's skirt in the photos I was referencing, so starting from the center back, I did a bunch of 1 1/4 inch-ish knife pleats until I had it pleated down evenly and to fit in the waistband. This pleat tool was such a time saver to get each pleat perfect and even. I basted the pleats in place with a running stitch, then prepped the waistband with a good old fold in half, fold the inside seam allowance, yada yada. I stitched the waistband to the overskirt by machine, then whip stitched it to the inside. I used a hook and bar closure for the overskirt as well, but I filmed it this time. With this style of hook, I like to stitch it on in a star pattern. I start with one corner, then the middle, then the other far corner, then the remaining corners. I pass this right between the layers of the waistband fabric to hide them. Does this make a difference? Is it actually the right way to do it? I don't know, but it's how I do it. For the bar, I stitch it on in an X pattern, also passing the needle between the layers of fabric to hide them. Finally, I used the same lace trim on the edge of the overskirt, but this time with beads. I alternated 4, 6, and 8mm glass pearl beads from Fire Mountain Gems in between the peaks of the lace. I actually loved this look so much that I ended up adding beading to the underskirt too. I used 4 and 6mm beads on the underskirt. And with that, the gown skirts are done. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please leave me a like, drop me a comment, and consider subscribing if you'd like to see more from me. Don't forget to click the notification bell so that YouTube lets you know every time I upload for this project or future projects. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!